Welcome back to my channel, the best place for new signers, intermediate signers, and struggling signers. Have you found yourself learning a new sign and you check a couple of different sources and they're all saying something different? Some may be completely different and some may be just a little bit different. And you're like, oh my gosh, who is right? Which one do I follow? Which one do I listen to? How do I know which sign is the right sign? In today's video, I'm going to go over how to figure this out, how to get rid of that confusion with sign variations, with regional signs. If you've ever heard that term where people are like, oh, don't listen to so-and-so, he teaches regional signs. No, he teaches regional signs. Don't listen to him. I'm going to go over all of that. If you've ever found yourself in this situation, definitely keep watching. First, we're going to talk about regional signs. What are they? How to use them in your learning? And are they bad for you to learn? So what are regional signs? If you look at a map of America and you see all of the lovely states, and you know every single state has a different accent. The South has the Southern accent, but even in the South, there are different Southern accents. You can tell somebody's from North Carolina between Georgia and between Texas. And then you've got the Midwest, and you've got East Coast, you've got the Boston accent, the Brooklyn accent, all of the accents up there, Maine, and then you've got the Northwest, close to Canada. Now they start sounding like Canadians, okay? So there's a whole bunch of variations in accents across the entire country. Then you have the different sayings that are used in that region. Different words, like some people say buggy and some people say cart, shopping cart, or, you know, as the crow flies, or wash or wash. You know, there's different ways people say different things across the country. Now that's for English, right? Now, if you think of it in ASL, it's really the same idea, the same concept. Rather than having accents, you have sign variations. You may have different ASL idioms that show up, different sayings that are used, but you're going to see it the most in the way a sign is signed. So now the big question, are regional signs bad? Well, if you look at regional signs in the same scope as you think of accents and sayings and words that are used in different regions, you automatically can see that no, regional signs aren't bad. They're not bad. So if you hear somebody saying, you shouldn't listen to that guy because he uses regional signs, you can say, that's actually not accurate. Okay, so now let me give you an example of this. It is good to know regional signs. That means you can sign with anybody across the country. You're not limited to just understanding the people that are in your local community. So how do you find out what the regional signs are for your community? Well, you have to go out into your local deaf community and sign with the people in that community to find it, or you can ask, of course, online. Now, there's this crazy misconception that a lot of hearing people have, or even create, that regional signs are bad and that you shouldn't learn regional signs, or you should only stick to the signs that are in your region. I don't know how or why this came about, but my favorite example of why this is simply not true can be found in the Facebook community ASL That. ASL That is filled with members of the deaf community, and they come together to discuss their language of American Sign Language. The deaf community loves and cherishes their language. They love to talk about it. They love to share ideas. They like to come up with new ideas together, collaborate, investigate, discuss. It's a big part of their culture, and it's amazing. So if you go into ASL That, you're going to see people go, hey, how do you sign this? Or how do you think about this? Well, I've been signing this sign this way. One of my favorite examples of this was years ago, probably by now, there was this very long thread of people saying, how do you sign lobster? Lobster. And there were so many video comments, like 30 to 50 video, I can't remember, but there were a ton of people going, oh my gosh, this is how I've signed it. I've seen it this way and this way and this way, discussing it. You know what was missing from that thread? People saying, no, you're wrong. Don't sign it that way. Not one person said you were wrong. You shouldn't sign it that way. You should sign it my way, or this way, or that way. Not one. And you can scroll through so many of the similar threads, and you're never going to find somebody going, what are you doing? That's not how you sign that. Okay? So if the members of the deaf community love to learn the regional signs across the country, discuss the various ways of signing a sign and try to come to a consensus or just a sharing of ideas, and they don't shame anybody for signing a different sign than their region, why would we as ASL students or as ASL learners that are outside of the deaf community think it's a bad thing? It's not. Embrace this idea, celebrate it, because the more regional signs you know, the more people you can sign with. And that's the whole freaking point of sign language, is it not? To use it and communicate. Before I get even more excited, let's talk about what do you do when you see conflicting signs where you're like, this guy is saying it this way, this girl is saying it this way, this book is saying it this way. What do you do? Let's talk about it. So there are five reasons, I'm sure there are more, but these are the first 5 that came to my mind of why a sign you're seeing is different from one person to another. Number 1, they could be doing a regional sign. Number 2, they could be doing an older version of the sign. Signs change and evolve over time, just like slang or words used in the English language. I mean, that's a mark of a real language, as if it evolves and grows and changes over time. So that could be an instance there. Number 3, one sign could be more C, or signed exact English, and another, maybe it could be more PSE, or pigeon signed English. It depends on their background, their signing background, and how they sign. Are they more C signers, PSE signers, or are they ASL signers? Number 4, they could be a newer signer. So maybe they're not the best resource, maybe they're just learning it. And so their sign may not be as accurate. Maybe they sign it off just a little bit than normal. Number 5, it could just be a variation of the same sign. If you think about it, in English, you can say big like 100 different ways. Big, huge, large, gigantic, ginormous. So it could just be another way of signing the same thing or communicating the same idea. Here's something you may not know about the deaf community. Everybody comes into it with a different background. They may not have learned sign language until they were adults. They may have been raised just with oralism or with just reading lips. They may have been taught C, signed exact English, or PSE, or ASL, or they may have moved around. It depends on their age. Maybe they went to a mainstream school. Maybe they went to a residential school. Maybe they didn't learn, so many deaf adults didn't learn sign language until they were adults because it was forbidden in their own homes. So everybody's coming to it with a different experience and a different history and a different background. Okay, so that means if you go to a deaf event, say there's 50 people in the room, okay, they're all signers, they all know sign language. You could go and you could watch everybody sign, and you're gonna see variations between everybody of them signing. Now, that doesn't mean they're all gonna be signing a different language, it just means you're gonna see variations and differences. You could ask one person, hey, is this how you sign sister? And they go, oh, you could ask one person, go, is this how you sign woman? And they go, no, you sign woman like this. You could go to another person, you go, is this how you sign woman? And they go, yes, that's exactly how you sign woman. All right, you have to keep in mind the history and the background of people. And you file away both variations. Okay, now you know 2 ways to sign woman. So if you're signing with somebody, just chatting about, and they say, woman, you know, woman. Or if you're signing to somebody else and they go, woman, you're not thrown off and go, oh my gosh, I don't know this sign. You know, that's also woman. I know when I've told ASL students this in the past, some of them have felt a little more anxious about it. Like, oh my gosh, like there's so much more to sign language than I realized, or what do I do? Or how do I handle this in my learning? And there's a lot more questions that come up. What I want you to get from this entire video is the freedom and release that this gives you. You don't have to stress about being right and being perfect and knowing the exact right signs. There's variations, there's regions, there's different backgrounds and histories of signers, and that gives you more freedom and more latitude as you learn, and you don't have to stress about making mistakes as much. Now let's make this practical, even more practical. So what do you do when you're learning and you're like, well, I want to learn these signs, but what do I do? So what I want you to do is pick one resource, your favorite resource, whatever that is, be it me, be it anybody else, I don't care. Pick your favorite resource and stick to that for a prescribed amount of time. Maybe it's one level of a course, maybe it's a month of learning, maybe it's X number of signs, whatever it is that you decide, do that. Say, I'm just going to listen to so-and-so for this number of days, or whatever is your parameters, okay? Stick to it and ignore all the rest. Focus on that. Then, when you have met that criteria that you've set up for yourself, go back and investigate. Make it a fun game. Make it feel like you're kind of a detective or something or whatever. And go through and say, hey, are there any other variations to these signs? Are there any regional versions or older versions or whatever? And take the time to note them, to learn them. The more signs you have in your quiver, the better and more adaptive and flexible of a signer you will be. And especially if you have dreams of becoming an interpreter, it's so important to know all the variations of the signs, the C, the PSE, and the ASL. Now, do that and then move on to adding more signs, but do take the time to learn the regional signs and the variations. It's only going to serve to make you a better signer. I know I've already mentioned that Facebook group, ASL That, and I cannot recommend that resource enough. It's a free Facebook group. Head over, join it, watch all the videos, look at all the posts before. I know they have a strict posting policy, so be sure you're aware of that. I recommend taking some time, a couple of weeks, a month, to really soak in all of the signs and how they're posting before you post your own thing, just so you know how the group runs and that you're following the guidelines that they have set up, because you want the best success, right? The link is in the description below. I'm not affiliated with the group at all. I'm just a member of that group, but I cannot recommend it enough. It's such a great place, especially for regional signs and variations, and really just to get to know the deaf community better. If this was helpful for you, be sure to hit the notification bell, because in the next video, I'm going to talk about the mistake you may be making when you are fingerspelling. And if you want to practice and learn some ASL vocabulary and put all these things that we talked about today to use, watch these two videos right here.